It's time to start building. Let's go through the segments from this week. So we have to build a pilot project in our AWS development account, set up the version control using GitHub, then build the CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions, and then lastly start managing our infrastructure with Terraform. So I created a bucket called Cloud Talents -Paul, and then I uploaded all the files needed for my website. I went to properties, I enabled the static website hosting, and then I went to permissions, I gave all public access, and then just gave a basic permission, which allows everyone to get objects from my bucket. I also created a CloudFront distribution, which points to my website endpoint. And then we just take the domain name from here, check out, and this is how my website works. As you can see, it fully works. Now let's go to the next assignment. It says set up the version control using GitHub. So I created the GitHub repo where I keep all the codes, and then this is very useful because it will just keep track of any commits that I do. And then if I want to work in a team, I have colleagues of mine who are working to the same website. We can just share the code here. And then every time when I want to do some changes, I just push them to this repo. It will update my website. And if someone else want to update it, they can do the same. Now let's go to the third assignment, which says build the CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. So we go back to our repo and we have this workflow. And let me just quickly walk you through the workflow. So we have our name, build a website using Hugo, and that is going to be triggered on push. Every time when I push something to the main branch, this workflow will get triggered. I set some permissions. These permissions, the ID token, write, and content read, they are for GitHub Action to assume the role so we can talk to my AWS account. I created an Open ID Connect to do this, which is way safer than just configuring the credentials and storing the credentials because that may be compromised. Then I will just walk you through the steps. So I used action checkout. It will just check out the whole code from the repository for all the steps, and then just set up the Hugo with the version 0.135.0 and then extended this through. That means it can use more features. Then we just run Hugo to build our website. And then minify is just to compress all the files so the website can run and be built a bit faster. Then we upload the build artifact in our folder called public with the name tech blog, which will be used for the next parts. And here is where we configure the credentials. As you can see, I just created the role, and then in the region where I'm hosting my website. And then on the next bit, it says deploy to S3. I just run the command to synchronize all the files from here. All the files from my public folder to my bucket. And lastly, we have create a CloudFront invalidation, which is being triggered every time when I put something to my bucket. So the users who are accessing my website, they will see the newly and improved website. And let's go to the last bit. The last bit will be a bit longer. So start managing our infrastructure with Terraform. That's why, as you can see here, I just created a new bucket for the same reason. I created a new CloudFront distribution, and I will just go through it in a bit. So in our last bit, in start managing our infrastructure with Terraform, I created a whole new repository for that. And then I will just show you, I created the Terraform configuration in this file. I felt like I didn't have to split the configuration in multiple files because there's no such a big configuration in this. Now, I just forgot to mention that in this newly created bucket, I did not enable the all public access just because we are using origin access control with our CloudFront distribution, with our new CloudFront distribution, and that's because we try to keep it as secure as possible. When in the other bucket, the bucket was publicly accessible and everyone could access the bucket as well. So if the bucket link was compromised, there could be people to find a way and break things. But then with this newly created CloudFront distribution with OAC, everyone who's trying to come to my website, it will just have to go through CloudFront distribution to access my website, so no one can touch my bucket. Then we go back to our configuration. So I created the remote backend for my state file, which is in Terraform Cloud. Then we have two providers. The first one is where we deploy all the infrastructure. And then the second one, we will need it in later steps, the one with North Virginia. Then we have the variables. I only used one for the domain name, which is paul-test-project.co.uk. So I wanted to have a domain name for my website. Then we have created the bucket and then policy for our OAC. So here we have the Route 53 and Certificate Manager, and that's where we needed the second provider. We can only create Certificate Manager in North Virginia, and that's why we had to use a second provider here. And that will be the case later on where we will use functions in CloudFront. They can only be created in North Virginia as well. And then we have the certificate validation. We created the records in Route 53. We also created the Route 53 zone and everything else. And then we have the CloudFront with the origin access control, CloudFront distribution. We set the aliases. And that's where we created also the functions association. So the problem is when we go to our website with Hugo, if we wanted to access different parts of the website, and I will show you later, that wouldn't be possible because all this CloudFront distribution, it will just point to the .index. It will just point to the index.html file. So in order to make all the pages work, we had to create functions. Then we go down and here is the bit where we created functions to point to any index.html file, and then we just have some outputs. So I will just show you the blog for the moment, and this is the blog, and see, as you can see, I can click on all of this, and if I didn't have them CloudFront functions, this wouldn't have worked. And now let me show you how you do the changes to it. So I will just go ahead in Hugo, and I will just want to change the name of my website, because as you can see, we have Cyprian's blog, and I just want to change it to Paul's blog. And I just do that. Oh, I'm just going to look for it. So replace it with Paul, this one and this one. Don't need the other one because this is just for the LinkedIn. And then just run github git commit git push. And now let's go to our pipeline and see the way it's building. So we have the test. and this is just creating the infrastructure. It's just running to create the infrastructure, but because we already have it, this will just take a bit. It will just give you an update, a refresh. Let's put it this way. I will just stop the recording for now and get back to you once it's done. So once this is done, we successfully deployed the infrastructure and we built the Hugo website. And as you can see, we still have Cyprian for now, but once I refresh this, it changes to Paul. And that's how you can manage the changes. It was Cyprian before because it was still with the cache, looking through the cache from the previous settings. But once I just hit refresh, it just went to Paul. Now let's go back and just go through the workflow. In the first bit, we have the job, which is called create infrastructure, and this is just running the Terraform initialize and apply, and it will just get all the variables and everything else needed to create and deploy the Hugo website. And this is quite the same like the other one. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully the founder will be happy with the way that we automate things for our website. See you in the next video. Bye for now.